meeting by Starleaf, and we don't have any witnesses today.
No, we're a witness-free day today, Chair.
So the meeting will be broadcast live when open to the public, and a recording will be made available on the committee's web pages on the Assembly website. The bill briefing will be hand-started as per protocol, and just to remind members to mute their tablet devices. Moving on, we have item number 1, which is apologies, and we have apologies from Claire, and Matthew will be along shortly. Item number 2 then, our draft minutes. There is a copy of the draft minutes from the meeting on the 3rd of November at page 5 of our packs. There is a copy of the draft minute from the meeting on the 8th of November at page 17 of our pack. So are members content that those are an accurate reflection of those meetings?
Thank you.
Agreed.
So moving on then to item number 3, it's Chair's business, and there is correspondence from the department at page 25 of our packs providing some further clarification that we had asked for in relation to potential cost of the committee amendments to the Parental Bereavement Leave Bill. The department states that incorporating miscarriage as planned by the committee's amendment increases the estimated bill cost by 2.84 million per year. The estimated cost of the bill originally was £100,000. The committee's amendments would therefore increase the ongoing annual cost of the bill by 2,840%. The estimated day one cost is £267,000, and that is also included in that overall costing. The department also states that the committee amendment does not attempt to define what a miscarriage is. Therefore, the department does not know if the amendment will include other forms of pregnancy loss, such as abortion. Abortion has been included in the above figures at a cost of £463,000 per year. The department adds that if the British government decided to maintain and restore parity with the position here in the north, this could result in an additional estimated repercussive cost of £92 million per year. However, the department has not provided any details for the basis of this assumption. And I guess just, I suppose, to say in relation to the other items that have been highlighted as well in terms of the definition of miscarriage and things like that, obviously what the committee's amendment does is give an additional 12 months to allow for how that provision is going to be brought forward to be developed. So that is obviously included in respect of that.
Chair, as the committee had discussed previously, there'll be a draft affirmative SR comes through on this. So the department has been clearly directed within a time scale, but final approval is going to be subject to what they bring forward and putting that into law. So if what they're suggesting actually happened, well, that's going to be part of that bringing forward a scheme. So there isn't any, nothing has been lost, nothing has been spent, nothing will be spent until regulations are in place and the Assembly will approve those.
Yeah.
So the department's scenario, I still have not seen what it's derived from. They talked about Treasury rules and so on, but they haven't really provided any detail. However, as I say, nothing has or will be spent until the Assembly approves it via the statutory rules that come
And that
through.
was obviously a choice that the committee made in terms of the amendments that we were making, that we would bring forward those regulations by draft affirmative procedure to allow for that additional oversight to be applied. And obviously the inclusion of the 12-month period was again to allow further development to be undertaken in respect of the amendment that was being made. So as we've said previously, I think the approach that has been adopted by the committee has been a very reasonable and pragmatic one in respect of our amendments. And I think that in terms of actually what we asked for and what we have been provided with is not actually a full breakdown of the information that we asked for either, and I'm not sure whether we will get that, but it would be useful if we did.
Chair, we still have that request in terms of the reference to abortion. That is a little spurious because part of the regulations will be very clear in its definition, and a definition already exists used by government anyway. So I'm not entirely sure what that reference means. Michael, can we let Sharon in?
Oh. Where's
Sorry, just,
She's outside? Oh, okay. So just, I suppose, to remind members, we've already completed our formal clause-by-clause consideration of the bill, and we've agreed our amendments to be tabled. The committee amendments will now go forward to be considered on the floor of the Assembly, where the Minister obviously will have the opportunity to outline his and the Department's views, and where obviously the Assembly will decide on the merits of the amendments that have been brought forward. So if members are content that we will include that correspondence as part of the committee's bill report.
Agreed.
Chair, that will simply slide into our further documents, so we can still approve the bill, bill report anyway, so that'll just go into one of the annexes.
Okay, so then there's just another item under Chair's business, and it's an invitation from Enterprise NI to the Enterprise Symposium on Entrepreneurship and Innovation on Friday the 19th of November at Titanic Hotel. Members should RSVP to the email provided if they wish to attend. Okay, so moving on then to item number 4, which is the consideration of the draft report on the Parental Bereavement Leave and Pay Bill. There are a number of items in our pack. There is the draft report on the bill at pages 28 to 86, a Hansard of our briefing from the 3rd of November at page 87, Hansard from the 20th of October at page 93, a copy of the 19th of October letter from the Minister at page 99, a copy of the Hansard from the 13th of October at page 102, a copy of the admissibility criteria for amendments at page 108, and the Clerk's memo from the 14th of October at page 109, a copy of the 13th of October correspondence from the Department at page 117, a copy of the Clerk's memo in the bill from the 11th of October at page 118, a Hansard from the 6th of October meeting on bill amendments, page 125, Hansard from the 6th of October briefing from the Department at page 127, a copy of the summary of amendment related issues from the evidence at page 133, and a copy of the response from the Minister to the table of issues raised by the committee at page 139. So we're now going to consider the draft committee report on the Parental Bereavement Bill. And just to remind members that the title page, the table of contents, the committee powers and membership were all agreed at Monday's meeting. So if we now move on to the executive summary, which is paragraphs 1 to 28 at pages 33 to 38 of our packs. I'm just getting back to mine, Peter. Okay, so there is also the introduction and committee approach at paragraphs 29 to 50 at pages 39 to 42 of the pack. So are members broadly content with those sections?
Agreed.
Thank you.
Peter, just to see in relation to the executive summary.
Yes.
And recommendations when we get to that. The issue, and it was discussed in relation to the leave and pay issue and workers and employees. Can we refer in some way to that being considered as part of the overall employment review that they're doing in terms of non-employees having the same protections as workers?
Yes.
It is referred to in other ways.
We'll make that more specific. Thank you.
Okay, does anybody have any other comments on that, or are they content with those sections?
Thank you.
Content, yep.
So, we're moving on then to paragraphs 51 to 210 at pages 43 to 74 of our packs. Those are the considerations of the provisions of the bill.
Yep.
And detail the responses to the call for evidence, the comments, and then the specifics of the clauses. So are members content with those sections of the bill?
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move on then to other issues raised in the consideration of the bill. Members will remember the things like the Bereaved Workers Coalition and looking at the broader issues in respect of bereavement. And Peter, just in relation to the day one, week one, is that reflected?
That is, it's reflected in it's in a number of places, Chair, where although we've referenced day one, and day one was largely the discussion that was had in the surveying and the call for evidence, after our discussion with the bill clerks in terms of why a week one is more practical than a day one, and how it allows the bill to proceed with less amendment. We've reflected all that within the narrative around clause by clause and the reason for amendments.
Are members content then with the consideration of the bill's paragraphs? And then the clause by clause scrutiny of the bill at pages 78 to 79 of our pack. Are members content then with those sections?
That reflects our meeting on Monday.
Yeah.
And then the list of appendices at pages 80 to 86 of the pack. So that's fairly straightforward.
Happy with those, yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
So obviously we agreed previously that the department's latest correspondence would also be added in. So if members are content that is therefore added into the report.
All correspondence, all Hansards, all minutes will all go in. Everything pretty much relating to the bill will be there.
Okay, so that's it.
Thank you very much indeed, Chair. So that will now officially be signed off as ready to print. We'll have that electronically ready by Friday, and really just what happens then is we send it out to all members. All MLAs will receive it then, and that brings us in before our deadline of Monday. And then we would anticipate consideration stage, because obviously the amendments the committee has made will be tabled on Friday by the bill office, so that will then pretty much, once we've arrived at that point, end of committee stage, that triggers the countdown for consideration stage. So that's then what we'll watch out for next. Thank you, members.
Okay. Okay, so we're moving on then to item number 5 of our pack, which is the small scale green energy bill. There's a copy of the Hansard from the 3rd of November at page 165. There's a raised paper on the bill at page 167. A copy of the Hansard from the 20th of October at page 223. A copy of a response from Action Renewables on the bill at page 225. Correspondence from the bill's sponsor, John O'Dowd, providing clarification in relation to the bill at page 226. A copy of the Hansard of the 13th of October briefing from John at page 227. A copy of the bill survey questions at page 234. A copy of the media signposting notice at page 236. And just to advise members that the committee will receive a briefing from RAISE at next week's meeting, and will also hear from Power NI on the bill. The clerk will also bring forward a summary of the evidence received to date and will outline the proposed oral evidence sessions for the next few weeks. So that's for members to note for now.
Chair, we are reprofiling the survey again, so we usually do that a number of days, sort of a week out from final close down. So the consultation and call for evidence closes on the 18th. So comms are going to push out another set of sort of placed social media, and that usually gets us a bigger wave. The minute we've not had a lot of response to the survey itself, we've had more sort of the larger organisations we approach directly have written back, and those are probably the ones we schedule in. So hopefully this other push will get more people filling in the survey. Chair, John,
Sure. I haven't had a chance to check the committee webpage yet, but an organisation emailed me yesterday to say that they'd been on to look for the survey and couldn't find it. Is it on the committee webpage?
It is. The links are all there, and there's a link from the front page of the Assembly website. To be honest, I think the front page of the Assembly website's easier to find.
Right, okay.
So once we send out again all of our social media stuff, we'll be retweeting that. So even if you direct people to the link that'll be on our Twitter feed, we can probably, I'm saying this now, we can pin that. Michael, can't we? We can pin that at the top. So if they go to our Twitter feed, they'll automatically see that link will be at the top. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's that. Moving on then to item number 6, which is our matters arising. At 6.1, there's a response from the Finance Minister to the committee's letter regarding its meeting with Ballantyne Business Solutions at page 238. And the Finance Minister has suggested that Ballantyne Building Solutions may wish to consider bringing its products to the attention of the Construction Professional Council, whose members and professional bodies would be responsible for the design and specification of a wide range of projects, including those within the public sector. So are members content that we share that response with Ballantyne Business Solutions?
Thank you.
Thank you. So 6.2 then, there's a response from the Minister at page 240 following the committee's informal meeting with local airports and the issues faced by the industry. The Minister's response in relation to some of the key issues raised is as follows. On the domestic aviation Kickstart scheme, officials are formally assessing the need for a potential extension of NIDACs over the winter period. On route development and the public service obligation routes, civil aviation is a reserve matter and for the Department for Transport, who have not yet provided guidance or clarity on how to interpret the conditions included within Article 367 of the Trade and Cooperation Agreement on subsidies for air carriers, and DFE continues to push for clarity in that regard. And then on APD, the Minister welcomes the Chancellor's announcement but is disappointed that the opportunity to remove APD altogether was not taken. On safety and security costs, if the Executive were minded to provide funding for safety and security costs to the airports, this would have to be via either the Department of Finance or the Department for Infrastructure. And on duty-free sales, the Minister recognises the difficulties and VAT and excise are reserved, but will continue to encourage the British Government to work closely with the executive industry representatives and the Joint Committee to ensure that a pragmatic and fair solution for our ports and airports is implemented. So that's for noting, unless members have any comments they want to make. Okay. So moving on, there is correspondence from the Minister in relation to the High Street voucher scheme at page 244, outlining advice in relation to the verification process to help members in providing advice to constituents. So that's for members to note. Then
Chair, Mr. O'Dowd.
Sorry, go ahead, Joe.
I don't know if other members have experienced this, but the dedicated email that was given to MLAs, and in fairness, it was over the weekends, which shows staff are working late and they're working overtime to deal with these matters. So I acknowledge that. But I received an email back on 2 different constituents. They said, thank you for your email, but you need to email another email. That's why I went back and I said, I thought this was a direct email. It is, but. So there's not much point in establishing an email for MLAs to contact the department if you then get an email back saying, by the way, you have to contact another email.
Yeah.
Chair, if members want to come through, if any kind of query, if they forward it to me, I can forward it direct to the department, and the department has been very good in getting back to us. It means basically if they have a name and details, they can go right into the system and sort that out. So if members just want to forward those details to me, and then I can forward them on to the department and we get a direct response.
You regret that?
No, it'll be great.
Chair, I can attest to the support of the clerk with regards to
And it's, to be honest, it's the department's been very, very good in coming back as quickly as possible on that. So my thanks to Sharon Ardallo and colleagues.
Thank you. So moving on then, 6.4, there's a response from the department at page 246 to the committee's queries regarding grants available in Scotland to improve ventilation in high-risk settings. The department states that the Executive's COVID task force is examining the utilisation of ventilation and fresh air in limiting the spread of COVID. That work will also explore the precise purpose, details and merits of the scheme announced in Scotland once further information on it is available from the Scottish Government. So that's for members to note.
Well, Chair, yeah, worth noting, but we are fast, if not already, in the period of time when ventilation is of vital importance in relation to the battle of COVID. And I wouldn't like to think that we're going to come to the other side of winter and the department produce some sort of scheme. If it was done in Scotland, it needs to be done here. It's vitally important that businesses, schools and others get not just advice to open windows, because that's not always practical. It is important that they get access to suitable equipment to either improve the air quality inside buildings or to make appropriate options to buildings. The fire extinguisher at the door is not the answer to the question, and in fact it's a very dangerous answer to the question.
Peter, can we ask for a time frame for that?
Yeah,
that
Chair,
work?
we'll do that. It might also be worth raising the issue with the Executive Office Committee. If members are content, we can write to the chair of that committee about it as well.
Yep.
Because I think the COVID task force ultimately sits within TEO.
It does, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Stuart. So moving on, there's a response from the department at page 247 to the committee's queries regarding the High Street Stimulus Scheme in relation to the 21 million contingency that the department states that the scheme is still ongoing and it's not possible at this moment to give a definitive figure in terms of overall cost. At this stage, additional cost requirements are between 5 and 8 million. The additional funding will be allocated from the financial resources available for ERAP, allocated to DFE. Additional funding will be required to meet certain costs in terms of contractual commitments and staffing costs to support the delivery of the scheme. So, Peter, I assume that 5 to 8 million is on top of the other 5 million
For admin, Chair.
that was already
Chair, that's the assumption.
identified.
With the extension of 2 weeks to be able to use the card, I'm assuming that means that more resources requires to be left in place for that. So what we can ask for is just clarification on that point. I appreciate what the department's saying is they won't know final costs until things are finally closed down, but it would just be useful to get clarification on what exactly that money's going to.
Yeah, and what the contractual commitments
Yeah.
are that were above and beyond what was originally set out.
Yeah. Sure, we'll seek detail on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Can I, sorry, Chair, this may be basic information that's been established by the committee earlier in this process, but has it been established that it will, underspent funds will be returned to the centre?
So ERAP has been allocated to DFE as a block, 394 million.
Fine.
And they have discretion within that envelope to allocate the funding.
Oh, and obviously, but the High Street scheme is the biggest.
The biggest chunk of that.
The biggest chunk of that, okay. But it doesn't get returned to, what I mean is in the High Street scheme, if there's underspend in the High Street scheme, does it automatically return to the centre? No.
To the executive?
No. It stays in ERAP and it can be used for, okay.
Just on that, and members of the public listening may find this difficult to believe, but an unplanned spend of £13 million is going to be very, very difficult for any department. So, say they come to the conclusion of these by the middle of December, they have 4 months to spend, £13 million. I'd be surprised, I'd be delighted if they can, or if there's a useful cause or useful purpose then, but I find it difficult to understand if you have no planned programme of spend, how you spend it.
Peter, can we ask?
Chair, we'd asked previously about this sort of general area of Plan B, if you like, the contingency, if the money on the High Street scheme wasn't required as estimated. So what we'll do is we'll put in a request for detail on just exactly how that is. Mr. O'Dowd says that's a lot of money to spend for the end of the financial year. It might also be worth the committee carving out some time to have a bit of a discussion around some issues. I know the committee has previously flagged up around the holiday home vouchers. that scheme seems to be in some doubt, and there may be an opportunity to establish something more long-lasting in terms of having talked to some people in the sector, potentially looking at some kind of fund that will keep rolling with money for marketing and promotion, or potentially putting money into paying for promotional campaigns through Tourism Ireland, which obviously markets beyond these shores to GB and the rest of the world. So I know there's some suggestions out there, but it might just be useful for the committee to sit down and have a think about that. But we'll seek clarification in the meantime.
And Peter, obviously we're all very aware of the energy cost issue, which will also be impacting business, so it might be worth just asking the department, are they doing anything in respect of that, and if there is additional funding available from any source, that are they looking at how they might be able to support businesses?
We'll check up on that, Chair.
Okay. So we're now moving on to item number 7, which is a written departmental briefing on Project Stratum. That is at page 250 of our packs. The department outlines that since the last update, the key highlights of the project are the first consumers were connected in Coal Island. A build has been completed in 3 of the 53 areas, namely Coal Island, Killyleagh and Kilkeel. Recruitment and training of over 380 new staff between Fibrous and its subcontractors has been completed or is underway. The announcement by the Secretary of State for DCMS confirming an additional funding for Project Stratum to contribute towards addressing premises that are currently beyond the scope of Project Stratum, as well as premises that were omitted from the target intervention area due to issues with LPS's pointer data set. So we're suggesting that that's for noting for now, and that we get an oral briefing scheduled in at some point in the near future. And Peter, I just had a query about the additional money that was provided, and it wasn't very clear to me in the briefing about the 2,517 additional premises and when those are going to be scheduled.
Chair, what we might be worth asking for is a new detailed timeline with, remember originally we got a document that set out the how the project would advance, how it would work. It might just be worth getting an update on that would update for those additional premises and any further considerations that are being put in, especially now that there is access to further DCMS money. That may well actually change the scope of what they can do. Yeah, I think getting a full, if members are content, full update.
Yeah.
Mr. Buchanan.
And I guess the point would be that in relation to some of the addresses that were missed out in the pointer data set, the areas that those might be in may already be scheduled, so it would just be useful to get a breakdown of all of that. So go ahead, Keith.
Yeah, just to come in on your point, and you're very valid. I'm looking at the 2 tables, table 1 and table 2. I presume that's the original Project Stratum table, as we call it, and not the 25 million additional or the 2,500. So yes, an additional breakdown out would be good to clear that up.
Chair, because they should have scoped in at what they can do with that extra money, because I think there was the plans for what you could do if you had limitless resource, and then there was the plan for what you could do with the resource you had. So hopefully they're now into getting widening out the scope of what they can do. So we get an update on all that.
Good, thank you.
Sir, I thought the scope was to reach hard-to-reach premises. That's what I thought the scope was.
That is exactly the scope, but I suppose with more money, it'll maybe allow for even harder to reach, because there was always going to be a level of premise that would fall out of this, because it was just beyond the resource that was going to become available, and it was the complexity of what had to be done with additional resource and potentially with additional time. You would hope that they could push much closer to that 100%, which technically is probably not possible to have 100%, but certainly getting higher. Chair, if you note in some of the areas, you're talking 99%, etc. Others, it's not as good as that.
I'm just looking there at West Tyrone. Percentage of premises to be passed by Stratum is 23.6%. Is that the totality of premises in West Tyrone, or what is that a percentage of?
That's
after Stratham's 99.1, so it's...
So that's basically, those will be connected via the project.
Right.
So you get a total. Chair, Mr. Nesbitt.
Yeah, Chair, I mean, we're focusing on the reach of Stratham, which is fine. But is there any data in terms of customer satisfaction? Because I'm speaking anecdotally here, but I'm hearing that there's pretty poor customer satisfaction in some areas.
We check up on what data they're gathering and what they're holding, and you would have assumed there'd be some form of feedback to people who are being connected. So we check up on what we can find there. If there isn't anything, we can always set up something ourselves. We have the power of citizen space, and we know how to use it. So we can seek feedback.
Yeah.
If there isn't any already being gathered, shall we pursue that?
Okay. And Peter, I know we're very tight for time over the next number of weeks, but it would be good if we could get it in maybe before Christmas.
We'll prioritise that one, Chair. We're looking at a new forward work programme with the department to prioritise issues like this that are high spend and of significant benefit, and we will fold them in somehow.
Okay. Thank you. So moving on then to item 8, which is correspondence. There's a copy of a statement by the DAERA Minister regarding the environment strategy at page 257. The Minister outlines the links to the green growth and the energy strategy and highlights that taken together these key strategies show the commitment of the Executive to a future which addresses our significant climate and nature challenges while facilitating sustainable economic progress. That's to note. And then there is correspondence from the Committee for Finance to the DALO, page 279, seeking an update on the financial assistance scheme and in respect of any current COVID support schemes available to travel agents in the North. That is for the committee to, the committee will also receive a copy of that response, so that will be for the committee to note until then.
Chair, I think that the Executive Office Committee is getting briefing on that fairly soon.
I think it might be tomorrow.
Yes.
Oh no, today.
Today's Wednesday, yeah.
8.3 then, there's a copy of the BES biomass policy statement at page 280, so that's for members to note. There's correspondence from the Renewable Heat Association at page 325 regarding sustainable and renewable energy as the antidote to climate change. So that's for members to note as well. There is correspondence from an individual at page 382 questioning the merits of the High Street Stimulus Scheme. So again, for members to note. And then there is a copy of the 5th report on the Examiner of Statutory Rules at page 384. And that's for members to note. And that is us. Okay, yes.
We haven't written, I don't know why we did.
Oh, okay. So then item number 9 will be any other business. If any members have any to raise?
No. Thank you.
Okay. So item number 10 is the date, time and place of the next meeting, which is next Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. in room 30. And just to remind members, there's an informal meeting scheduled for tomorrow at 12:30 with Klarna, and you should have received an invitation to that in your emails.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay. That might be record time, Peter.
This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Committee Room 30. This is the Northern